Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd and Andy here again today with another episode of the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast. My guest today is a friend of mine, business partner. I'm working together here for about 6 months. He's an expert in sales, expert in relating to people, relating to sellers, and also in finding deals. Happy to invite my guest on here, Andy Freeman. Andy, thanks for coming on, man.
What's going on, Ferd? Long time no see.
Yeah, long time no see. Well, Andy, obviously I know you well, working together. But for those of us listening that don't, why don't you give us a little bit of your background, what your careers look like, and then how you made the switch into MHP?
Yeah, awesome. So basically, went to college, got an accounting degree. This will be quick, but went 10 years slaving away doing accounting, not really moving up. Then by just kind of coincidence, I ended up taking a car sales job and with Toyota, and I spent the last 5 years selling cars and just really gave it my all, busted my butt, saved every single penny. I bought a nice couch and that's about it. I just saved for 5 years. But the catch there is when you're selling cars, you're zero to hero in 1 month. You have a good month and you got to start all over the next month. Take a day off, you're not making any money. There's no sitting back at home on the couch and watching any kind of income stream come in. So I kind of came to that realization that I can't work this hard. It's not a sustainable long-term plan. And I started, listening to podcasts, getting everything I could into my brain on the MHP space. And, started during COVID, I started writing out letters and, direct mail to owners, got some deals under contract. And then kind of, we'll go into kind of details how I partnered and such, but my goal was just to find some mobile home parks to buy to get out of the car sales business and, kind of take off from there.
Yeah, I know also, you were one of the top salesmen at Toyota and one of the top in the country even. So how did that translate into MHP? I mean, you obviously had a drive, you had a hustle, you're making a good income, but as we've discussed many times, the income of ordinary income of commission-based, especially in California, gets taxed pretty hard versus a real estate professional, considerably more tax advantages, bonus depreciation, cost segregation, things of that. But how have you used your skills? And from the beginning, did you use your skills and kind of maintaining a database and maintaining rapport with sellers that in the car business, buyers, but in the home park business, sellers? Tell us how you've kind of made that transition work.
Yeah. So, I had an accounting background, no sales. Sales kind of frightened me in a way. So I definitely am not your stereotypical salesman that's pushy and, tries to corner someone as saying the dealer. What I really learned was the best way to make a sale is be consistent, follow up, not be pushy, answer their questions, be responsive, respond right away. So I would respond if a customer emailed at 11 at night, I'd reply back at 11 at night. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, respond to emails. That's just what I did. So I took that over to the mobile home park industry when I was trying to look for deals during COVID. Everyone was, oh, we're scared. We're sitting at home, not doing anything. We're free from, we're off work. Yay. I was waking up at 6, writing letters, building a database. I did that. My girlfriend thought I was like, what are you doing? Because I'm working 12 hours, 15 hours a day, just building this database. And there's no immediate results or rewards for doing that, right? It's something that it proved to be the fruits of my labor I didn't recognize until 6 to 8 months down the road, if not even longer. So it's not an immediate results that you're going to see, which is kind of the tough thing that what gets a lot of people discouraged. So basically, I took the car sales kind of hustle. It's not a short term. It takes long term effort to get the long term goal. It's not a quick fix. So yeah, it's kind of what I did. And then, like I said, did that for about a year of doing direct mail, building the database. And then, it's all kind of come full circle within the last year.
Right now, you don't have to give away your special sauce, but tell us more about the database. I know you've got a unique system and it's worked out really well at finding off-market deals, direct to seller, and, all over the country is where you started. Now you've kind of zeroed in on a handful of states, but if you can share any tips with our audience, please do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of just took the burn and churn approach. I built a database for almost every state. I'm from California. One of the only states I didn't build was California because I don't want to be buying real estate in California. The tenant laws favor the tenant big time. And so I just built a database, built every state. I pulled just a list of the parks off MH Village, but I didn't hire a VA to actually build the database or plot the locations. I plotted every location on the map, saw an overview of the park, got familiar with the park, so that when you're calling, talking to a seller, writing, you know what you're talking about. You don't look dumb. So it's easier possibly to outsource and have someone else do it, but the knowledge you gain while building the database helps you once you talk with the seller. So I literally just, I plotted 30 states, started writing letters everywhere, and then kind of just kept going from there. I got responses pretty well to the letters. This is one tip. I know people send postcards and do printed mail. I do handwritten letters with may have a female maybe write them so they're legible, and then you get I got 0% response on a postcard campaign, and then I switched to handwritten letters. And I probably got 5%, which I know sounds low, but for direct mail, it's pretty high. So that was the best, my first call back. I started getting calls from the letters I'd written to sellers. I'm like, wow, this is actually starting to work. And, kind of just kept going from there.
That's great. And tell us what your goal was at the beginning, and then kind of how that goal changed. There's a lot of guys trying to wholesale deals, flip deals, or some guys trying to buy. I spoke to a guy the other day. He's like, I want to buy one park in my town, own all the houses, and that's my retirement. That's fine. That's different goals. Some people say I want to own 50 parks and no parking homes. Others want to own just by themselves. Others want to syndicate. Others want to take a small piece of deal and not have to work. Tell us kind of what your goal was and how that started and how that kind of changed over time.
Yeah, the goal definitely changed over time. Right now, where I'm sitting, I didn't expect to be sitting where I'm sitting now. But my main goal, so fast forward a year before I left the car industry, I decided to sell my house in California. I was going all in on buying mobile home parks, right? So I sold my house, moved in with my girlfriend in a little small condo with her mother. I had, it was a long, sacrifice a year of my life to, work hard towards a greater goal. So save the money from selling my house. And I was going to plan to buy a mobile home park myself, right? So I'd gotten pretty good responses on my letters and calls, but I was a little bit trying to cherry pick the park I bought. And so long story short, I got 3 parks under contract: Kansas City, Des Moines, and Ohio. And I was going at it trying to close them all myself. I was doing due diligence myself. I flew out to Ohio, then went to Iowa. I'd been to Kansas City. So I was trying to do this all myself with no experience. I had what I thought was the funds to close these deals. But as I, down the road learned it's not just about having the money. There's so much more involved, in which I think we'll get into. But yeah, so my plan was to buy these all on my own. And then that kind of changed over time as I realized that I probably wasn't going to close any of these deals.
One part, I know part of the challenge with closing your first deal, especially from out of state, is not just having the down payment funds, but understanding what the capital X funds are going to require and having that CapEx money and that CapEx plan. But then also a deal point that hurts a lot of folks is getting the debt. We're closing on a deal this week here in Missouri, and it was a deal from one of my clients. It said, look, I can't get the debt. I'm not local. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of the local banks. I just launched a mini series on lending. So if people haven't listened to that, it'd be worth going back. But there's this kind of attitude with a lot of local banks. And, a lot of deals won't fund with big banks because they're too small or they're too destabilized or, something of the sort. And local banks, a lot of them just say, I had one deal I sold, and the buyer was a really qualified buyer, in my opinion. Good net worth, good liquidity, already owned 3 or 4 mobile home parks. And something like 178 banks told them no. And there's like, you're not from around here. We didn't play baseball when you growing up. We don't see you at church on Sunday. Your kids aren't in scouts. And that's kind of become a problem. If you don't have a business relationship, small banks are relationship banks. So you, obviously, being from California, you had no banking relationships in the Midwest or Ohio. And so tell us how that was a challenge, and what you went to, what you tried to do, and how some of that even was a challenge.
Yeah, so I got a couple leads on banks that might finance MHP. Reached out to a couple people in the space. They seem responsive. They, hey, give us your personal financial statement, give us, your scheduled real estate owned, do the whole pitch deck. I did all that, and then they said, okay, well, you don't live here, so once you have an address here, we'll process your application. I was like, so basically they're saying you have to move here just to apply, and not even guaranteed to get the loan, right? So it's just all these things you read in the forum, you hear from people. It's true. It's probably possible, but it's very, very tough to have your first park be out of state and get a loan. That's why, and I actually had a loan broker who I know is successful because he's helped other people get loans, get nice loans. And he's, he wasn't able to come through for me either. So, I mean, I was trying everything. And then it kind of got down to the point where I was like, I thought I had 3 deals I possibly bought. I figured I was going to buy 2 out of the 3 deals, maybe drop 1, but it was looking like I'm not going to buy any of these deals. And I just spent a lot of time, money. I mean, I was doing everything right. I was getting phase 1. I was, I had sunk costs. So yeah, and I kind of reached, well, not necessarily panic mode, but I started looking at alternative options, partnering, which at first I was, I kind of had the concept in my head that partnering meant giving away something you worked hard for, or, giving up a piece of the pie. And, not that I was against that. I just kind of wanted to do it all on my own. So that's kind of how I went. So I didn't end up getting any bank loans on any of those properties on my own.
Right. So then once you realize, I mean, this is, I think, common for a lot of folks. Once you realize it's harder to get the debt on your first deal, that's why a lot of people do seller finance deals. The first deal, which typically are deals that have more hair on them, private utilities, destabilized rural areas, the ones that are harder to get loans on. So if that wasn't the case on these deals, which I know they weren't, then the next option is wholesaling or just assigning the deal for a fee, which could be 5,000, could be 50,000, depends on. It could be twice, 5 times that big. I guess it depends on the deal. Walk us through how the evaluation of wholesale versus partnership, and what that looked like then, and what that looks like now in your mind.
Yeah. So my strategy all along was long term. I was looking at big picture. I was making very good income in the car business, which, so I could wholesale and take a fee, but that's just the same thing as, a good month in the car business, or possibly a little higher, but kind of likens to the same thing. It's once you collect that fee, you're back out looking for the next deal. So I was committed to sticking in the deal. I didn't really consider wholesaling these deals. I wanted to close them. So the long-term strategy in my mind was buy the park, hold, get the experience. I mean, I really wanted to get the experience and the ownership, and, and let them, have that carry me down the road versus just getting a quick fee. So yeah, so I didn't consider wholesaling it. I decided, I was going to try to find someone to partner with. And that's kind of where you and I met. Went on, where else do you go look for partners? You go on LinkedIn, and guy, Ferd, mobile home park lawyer, all these connections, looking for mobile home parks in Kansas City. I was like, wow, this guy knows what he's doing. So I reached out to Ferd, and, it's kind of, we talked about, he liked the Kansas City park and he liked the Des Moines, Iowa park. And then, we kind of talked. I guess the first thing was, my first goal was to talk to him about the Kansas City park. That's how we first connected.
All right. No, and what's funny about that is you found me on LinkedIn because I had this big active presence. But as you know, I had not been on LinkedIn in years. And I was just, all of a sudden, I just started. I'm going to get an active presence to help build my law practice. And it worked out really well. The law practice, it worked out really well on the deal side too. To help you find me and me find you, so it was great. But what was cool about you too is you said you were all in. Like, you sold your house, you were committed to moving to whichever park you bought, and you moved to Kansas City, and you stayed in a hotel for a few nights. And I thought you were going to rent an apartment for 6 months. And you're like, hey, I like your neighborhood. I'm buying a house down the street. And within 3 days or so of being here, you got a house under contract. You're like, oh, but by the way, it's a 45-day close. And then what do you know? My wife is about as easygoing as anybody, and she's like, I don't care. So, and she let you stay in our basement for 6 weeks as we were finding more deals, and then you ended up buying the house down the street, and I don't know, we've been closing on a deal a month since you got here 6 months ago. So it's been a fun journey. But also, one thing that I think we'll talk about your database and your strategy to find deals that help. One thing I know that helps find deals is building rapport with sellers. Touch on a little bit of what you've been able to learn from an operational standpoint, and how that's impacted your ability to relate with sellers, which undoubtedly is in a better way than you were able to 6-8 months ago, trying to talk the talk without having to walk the walk.
Yeah. So back up a little bit, just to staying in your house. I kind of left that part out. Yeah, if you're going to partner with someone and you're truly going to want to learn the business, you can't be in California and say, hey, I'm going to actively participate when the park's in Missouri and so is the operator. You need, I mean, you can only do so much remote. You really can't do that much from afar. So I committed to being all in. Like I said, this wasn't just to talk the talk. I mean, I was going to walk the walk. So I moved to Kansas City, packed up, moved. I mean, my family, some people still don't know why I moved here, but I moved here to I didn't want to try to, and looking back with hindsight, some of the operational experience I've learned so far, I just cringe at thinking about being in California and then getting a call that the pipes are frozen up. And from California, I didn't even know about frozen pipes. Didn't even know that was a thing until I was back here in Kansas City dealing with it. Ferd was with me Sunday night. I think it was Valentine's Day. We're at 11 p.m. in the trailer park with the heater thing, the salamander heater. And also, so it's a lot of stuff. I can't do that from California. And once you kind of show that you're that committed, it helps everyone, helps the partnership. So just wanted to touch on that. But back to the database and back to actually to having that hands-on experience, that also has helped me talk with sellers. Once I know about heat tape, I know about frozen pipes now. I didn't know that stuff before. The more you know, I know a lot about private utilities. I've seen a lot of private utilities. We purchased parks of private utilities. So the more you know and the more hands-on field experience you gain, you can go on for sellers for hours, and you're not faking it. You truly know it. In the beginning, talking with sellers, you do have to kind of fake the funk a little bit if you're just starting out, which is okay. I would say never lie to them. You can use stuff you've learned in podcasts and stuff. Don't lie to them. But yeah, a lot of this is building the relationship, talking with them, and not pressuring them. Like you said, like these sellers have no urgency necessarily to sell. Sometimes they possibly do, but most of the time, pressuring a seller is not going to get you anywhere. So, I mean, we're on a couple contracts, a couple deals that actually one of the guys that we have, a Arkansas park we have under contract, was my first letter I ever wrote, and that was April of 2020, right? So, I mean, sometimes it takes a year. I've heard stories of taking longer. So the main takeaway is get time in the field. That's going to help you immensely down the road when you're talking with sellers, and just helps you overall as operations. That's a huge part is knowing the operational side if you're going to try to find deals to wholesale or to purchase. So that's my advice on that.
No, that's great advice. I mean, being able to talk is so important, and sellers can sniff it out. Think about that deal that Dad found in Quincy. He talked to that guy every 6 months for 5 years, and it's a great park and a great deal. And he gave the price. We said okay. It was a reasonable price, and he could have sold that to 100 people, but nobody else could get a hold of. Nobody else could sit there and go see him. What you did was you got on a plane and you flew to Independence, Missouri, and met the seller. You flew to Des Moines, Iowa, met the seller. You flew to Ohio, met the seller, and that showed you were serious. Instead of just I'm sending postcards, I'm calling. Yeah, it's hard to have a shotgun approach and do that everywhere. So I think it's one thing we've talked about is just get more of a rifle approach. Scope in on your target, and then I don't need to own trailer parks in 40 United States. If I own 50 in 5 states, that's okay too. There's a level of lack of diversification, I guess, with that, but there's a level of centralization, efficiencies, and understand your market as well. So whatever your target market is, I think it's just important to put in the effort to build rapport, because you're right, sellers don't need to sell in this environment. There's probably, I can't guess, but I call it 5% of sellers out there that have not been contacted 10 times. Those are the guys and gals that can barely be found. But most everybody, they know that, we're talking to the broker there today. It's like, yeah, we just made an offer at this price in this deal. It's like, that's 25% higher than I offered 6 months ago. So I'm not going to be able to win on price. I got to win on, hey, I'm different. Here's why I met with you. I'm serious. I can talk. I'm a real closer. I have this vision and goal for the community and so on. You've got to distinguish and separate yourself from the crowd in some way other than price.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. If you're just starting out trying to find a deal, a lot of stuff that's on market, they're going to want proof you can close. It's going to be hard, and the pricing is going to be way higher on market. So if you're just starting out, I mean, that's the route you kind of have to go is to find a seller that'll let tie up a park. They're not going to ask you to send necessarily proof of funds. A lot of times it's the sellers, they'll out of relationship building, they'll sign a contract with you, and then, it's on you to get that deal closed. But it's just much more competitive on market. You're not going to have the track record to have a broker look at you and stuff. I mean, so it's like I said, it's like you mentioned also, it's just rapport building. You don't have to fly out to every person you meet online or on, through the phone and visit the park personally, but it's a good idea to have visited the park and visited their, so that you're putting an offer on something you've seen and you're not wasting other people's time. So that's a good, I mean, the relationship is just not to sound cliche, it's kind of everything though, as far as you know, if your price is a little bit lower and they've spent 6 months talking to you, they're going to pick you over some guy that comes in and offers them $200,000 higher on a letter in the mail, right? So,
right, and having spent the time bonding with them, it's crucial. Now let's tie that into assignment, because sometimes I call you assignment Andy because you can be good at that as well. But so we're not just bagging on assignments and wholesales, because there's definitely a place for that in the marketplace, and we're closing on deal this week that somebody assigned us. So I'm grateful for that. I think in general, assignments are more like selling cars, and taking equity in the deal and owning the deal is more long-term wealth. And I do think that the assignment industry has a limited shelf life, because I think it's only a matter of time until this industry is consolidated. And once it's largely consolidated, I think the wholesalers are going to have trouble getting a fee from professional owner to professional owner. They have the opportunity now to get a fee from ma and pa to the first professional owner. But if we're going to do an assignment, and then you did one recently in Nebraska, tell us how you worked on that deal, and the difference between that and just, a lot of guys get under contract, put it on Facebook forum, and then they just get out of the way and hope it closes and hope to see if they get a check. The way that you did it, how we selected the end buyer, which we'll keep confidential who that is, but how we selected the end buyer, and then how we, and largely you maintain the relationship with the seller. You may walk us through some of that process.
Yeah. So I had, it was a park in Nebraska, little far away, about 9 hours from Kansas City. I reached out to the owner, messaged him on LinkedIn, kind of started chatting with him, got that park under contract. It's a 120 space park, so great park. I mean, nice newer homes. We'd love to own it. It was just a little further than we'd like. But we also knew an owner who owned a park down the street. So we visited the park all together with that owner. Ferd was there, drove 9 hours to Alliance, Nebraska. Like I said, I'm from California, so Kansas City is cold to me. Alliance, Nebraska, I don't know, negative 20 degrees. Some of these guys don't have, I had the whole hunting mask that covers my face and everything, but you got to visit the site. If you're talking with the seller, even if you're trying to wholesale a deal, I still think you need to be involved every step of the process, just so the seller, and it enhances your chances of closing the deal. So we did the site visit, did all the due diligence. I spoke with the seller probably daily for a few months. Just was hands-on. I'm still technically working on it a little bit to help out the buyer, right? Just out of courtesy, right? I don't know. So it's just, if you're invested in the deal, either way, not look at it as a quick fix and then run, you have to kind of just do the same steps as if you're going to buy it, right? You want to believe in the deal you're wholesaling and not just throw it to someone, hope they close and you get a fee, right? So it was a park we were interested in buying. We decided, hey, maybe it's a little bit too far for us, and this might be better suited for someone that's already in that market. They can add 120 units to their already 55 units. And so they got a nice portfolio there. So it was mutually beneficial. And so we're not anti-assignments. In that case, it's kind of a win-win. You get a fee, they get an added value to the portfolio, and they got a good deal. I mean, we look back, it was probably a little bit better deal than we had realized. But yeah,
I think the key there was what you did. You kind of hit it high level, but I want to drill a little bit further. Is the seller all along the way was working with you. You were the point of contact. You personally went on site. You personally, 9 hours each way. You personally visited 20 park-owned homes, and then you dealt with the surveyor. You dealt with the title company. You dealt with the phase one environmental. You pulled market comps. You were involved in the budget and the financial analysis. We weren't involved, and you in particular not involved in the loan as much on this one because it was a different guarantor on the loan. But the point being, you were basically evaluating on a regular basis, is this a go, no go decision? With an end buyer that we had a relationship with, that we wanted to make sure it worked out well for him. And if it wasn't good enough for us to buy, it wasn't good enough for him to buy. So we continually evaluated that process. And I think that was, the buyer appreciates that. Like, look, we've got skin in the game. We had money up, effort up, and then we gift wrapped, not just gift wrapped, but you kind of gift wrapped a deal that's been vetted, as opposed to, here's this deal I tied up and I have no idea. I've never been there. I have no idea what it looks like and if it's any good. But here you go spend money. I think it's harder to get to closing as a wholesaler when you punt all the work and responsibility to the end buyer. If the end buyer doesn't do it, your due diligence clock is burning. But if you babysit the deal and in earnest evaluate the validity of the deal. If it gets through the DD process, it's going to close. And then of course, as a wholesaler, you want it to close. That's when you get paid. And sometimes you can leave your fee in the deal and still retain some ownership. Sometimes you can manage the deal post closing for a fee. So if you do it all right and you have a symbiotic partnership with your end buyer, there's, in car sales, right? There's one way to get paid. You sell. If you're in a car dealership, you get paid another way. How do you get paid? You sell warranties, you sell finance, you sell repairs, you sell service. So what are your parts? So what do car dealerships do? They give you the first 6 oil changes for free. So you get used to coming there, and you want your tires rotated. On the 7th oil change, you might as well go back there, right? So they've come up with a system to get paid over and over again. The way you get paid over and over again in the wholesale business, I think, is you deliver so much value that you earn a right to sit at the table the day after closing, where most guys disappear the day after closing.
Yeah, I mean that's 100% it. I mean, on this deal, if this deal had not penciled out and something came up that we thought was bad, I mean, I know there's a fee at stake, right? But I mean, and from an ethical standpoint, I mean, I would have spoke up and told the seller, hey, I don't think this is a go. And just, even though we're going to lose commission, it's not, they're going to trust you even more. They'll buy the next deal from you, right? So that's the key is to underwrite it and truly believe in the deal. If it's good, it should go to close. If it's bad, speak up and let that be known. So that was kind of the game plan on that. And just like you said, it's established a long-term relationship with that buyer. And, so going forward, I think it's a win-win.
I think that's right. You always hear, like you said, cliche, relationships are everything, but that's a great book, by the way. I've read that. But reality is they are. And on this particular buyer, he already got another deal under contract. We underwrote it and did the due diligence and recommended don't buy it. And he listened to you, and he didn't. You had put in the analysis, and your commission on that is 0, but your credibility is 100. So I think, I've got that great book I give out to probably giving out 50 copies of the Long View by Matthew Kelly. And it's just a short book. It's a speech he gave at Gonzaga. I think it was Gonzaga, years ago, a commencement speech, and he turned it into a book. And he gives it away for free. I think you pay shipping or something, but it just talks about taking that long view, and there's that's what we do here on the wholesale side, on the acquisition side. So I think that's powerful. I think your story's powerful, that you put in the effort, you had a vision, you were systematic and strategic, and you realized, taking down a deal by yourself may not be for everybody, may not be for everybody the first deal. And if you get a smaller pie of pie, it's better than all of no pie, or you get a smaller pie of lots of different pies. And that's what you've been able to do. And it's been great to see it work. Great to see you grow in operational IQ and continue to add value to your parks.
Yeah, it's been, I mean, looking back at where I'm at now, I mean, I got 4 parks, close on another one this week. So it's not a huge, it's a big milestone in the sense that a year ago I had 0 parks and was still working the car job. Actually, less than 6 months ago, I was still working the car job. But and by partnering, I had planned to spend all my money on those 3 parks. Now we have more parks and still have money to spend on other stuff and to live. So, I mean, the partnering, until I just hadn't opened my eyes to it. You're able to get further by partnering, even though it sounds counterintuitive. Partnering has allowed me to grow faster, learn a lot more, right? If you're partnering with someone that's good at operations, I mean, Ferd doesn't necessarily know every day that if I had to ask these questions of someone while trying to operate a park on my own, I would be asking someone a million questions a day versus partnering with someone. They lead by example, or, you pick up tidbits each day. So I've learned an endless amount of information that would have taken me probably years to find out on my own. So that's one of the major benefits of partnering, aside from just being able to also get the deal closed. So it's been a fun ride. And then, like I said, that park in St. Charles was much bigger than I ever thought a park that I could ever take down on my own. And, I think so. I just really, feel fortunate, but it's at the end of the day, it kind of goes back to, there's a lot of sacrifice in the beginning. You can't, it's not an overnight process. It's kind of people have to realize, but it will gradually progress, and letters you wrote 6 months ago might hit, you know, they might sit that letter on their counter and then call you 6 months later and say they want to sell. So just keep at it, and it'll come full circle before you know it.
All right, man. Well, great advice, great information to share. Hopefully, inspiring others to follow your footsteps and get into this business, which we love so much. Before we jump, where can people find you? How can they reach out to you, Andy?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I don't post a ton, but I try to. A lot of people message me about building a database, and I'm glad to help out and teach you guys what systems I use, what products. I mean, I enjoy doing it. There's enough mobile home parks for everyone. I still think maybe in 5 years I won't tell everyone how to find them, but right now I still think there's enough mobile home parks to go around. So you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me. It's Andy at third4properties.com. That's thirdivproperties.com. And I'm glad to help, right? I mean, definitely not trying to hold information close to the vest. I'll share any information and tricks I have. So appreciate it having me on.
All right, man. Thanks, Andy.
See you later.